BF3. A lot of PC graphics fans here, I guess? Awesome. I'm from DICE, which is a studio in Stockholm, Sweden. Here's just a couple of shots of our studio. It's a pretty nice studio. That's me, up in the right corner, sitting working. I like to collect monitors when I'm not...
monitors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I guess most of you guys have played these games before that we're working on. How many here have played all of these games? Yeah, that's awesome also. So we're going to talk about BF3. As all of you guys know, it's a 64-player multiplayer game, our big return to the actual true Battlefield experience. We also have single-player co-op, but for the PC audience, that's usually not that easy. But they're pretty fun. One thing that's really new and cool about BF3 is that we have this giant, large landscape environments, as well as both urban and indoor environments that I hope you guys will like and see. And we've developed this game for quite many years now, and PC has always been our lead platform, the way we really wanted to design and develop the game for. And in order to do that also, we've added the requirement of having DX10 and DX11 because we're able to write more directly to the GPU, and it's a lot more efficient for us to work in that sense, to really take advantage of all the new features in the GPUs. And in order to create BF3, we created a new engine, or a new major revision of the engine, the Frostbite engine that we've been working on for quite some time, called Frostbite 2, where we've done some massive enhancements and improvements with regard to both animation, rendering, lighting, destruction, as well as our landscapes and general streaming systems. So it's been a pretty major revision that we've been working on for a long time here, with PC as a focus from the start. But I'm here today to talk about graphics. So let's just jump straight into it. Here we have a pretty fancy screenshot from BF3. This specific part is the single player. So this is one reason to play single player. The graphics there in certain type of environments are really awesome. It looks cool in multiplayer also, but it's a little bit different experience in single player, the way you play the game. One important thing when you're talking about graphics though is that most people look at the screenshot and say that has good graphics. Which I hope you guys agree with this screenshot also. But it's important to really consider that graphics is really the core portion of the techniques of how you show things on the screen. It's not really what makes a screenshot pretty or what makes the screenshot visually pleasing. Graphics is the core component there. What we're seeing here really is the sort of aesthetic of the picture, that we're trying to build a full picture where everything fits together. So it's not just about the shiny shader or a good lighting effect or a good rain rendering method. It's when all these things come together, they form sort of a whole and create a pleasing aesthetic of the game. And there was actually a really cool talk, a really cool presentation they had a few weeks ago on Penny Arcade about the difference between graphics and aesthetics. Aesthetics is the A here, and graphics is really a way needs to be a method of serving aesthetics, and also gameplay analysis as well. And I think many games are sort of missing this key correlation between aesthetics and graphics. That graphics is really there to improve the aesthetics and the visual style you have for the game to create a pleasing whole of it. It's not the end goal in itself. And also with gameplay, we see that more and more now. But as we add more graphics, we add it in a way where it actually improves gameplay. Because you see more, you get better visibility in levels, you see muscle flashes in dark areas, you actually see those snipers hiding out or anything like that. So this is just a core thing I wanted to clear up starting out. But let's jump into the graphics and some of the visual major components that we have in our engine, in our game. So it's sort of divided up into 5 major areas that I'm going to talk a little bit about, and then finish off with some more stuff. So the first thing is how we handle objects in general in our scene. Objects is a huge portion of everything that we see. Then we also have the lighting engine that we've done massive improvements to create the different types of environments. And then the way we do effects, which has always been a big thing for Battlefield. Landscapes and terrain is also another big portion there, and also post-processing that we're working on. I will go through these individual components. and talk about a lot of details in those. So let's start out with objects. There's really have a lot of different types of objects we have in our engine in our game. Every single soldier you see, every single vehicle, every tank, every helicopter, those are very important gameplay objects. Those are really what the game is. You are a soldier. You're controlling a soldier that's shooting on another soldier or a vehicle or a tank or something like that. So those are key gameplay objects. They're really, really important for the rendering and for the game in general. We also have tons of environment objects like trees and bushes in order to create a suitable landscape, as well as man-made objects in certain worlds, like buildings, fences, and things. Nothing super weird about that. And then effects is another version also. So, but in order to be able to handle huge amounts of objects on the level, we can have up to 10,000 different types of objects on the level. It really requires a lot of effort in the engine and the gameplay as well. But in order to render that efficiently and handle that and make it fit into memory, even on a very high-end GPU, you still have a limited amount of memory. So we have some really interesting systems on how to manage and stream meshes and textures. We do LED and distance scrolling in a lot more expanded way than we've done before with the occlusion color system, which makes rendering fast but not rendering things that you don't see, which kind of like make a lot of sense. One thing that's always been strong with Frostbite and we've been going further on is to be able to do parallel rendering, to utilize all the multi-core PCs out there, quad-core or even more CPU cores, to render all the entire world that we have in parallel and also simulate all the vehicle physics as well as the trees swaying in the wind, all those type of things. So I'm going to talk a little bit more details about a couple of these very important points for the way our engines work. So with regard to mesh and texture stream, that's something we haven't really had before in Frostbite or really in any Valve game. Usually you just fill up memory in the engine and then let that run. And have some graphics options in order to scale it a little bit. But back when we did BF2, we saw that there's some issues with doing that approach. That there's so many different PC configurations, so it's kind of difficult to fill up memory and then hope that works because there's so many different configurations of memory and what type of settings that we have. So streaming assets has a lot more flexibility there because we can overall just reduce the memory amount that we require to be consistent that when running, we have smaller sets loaded, so we're running more different configurations. But we can also do it the opposite way. We can increase quality by using that memory in another way and add a lot more variety in levels by having tons of unique meshes and unique textures everywhere. This really creates a freedom for level artists and level designers when they create lots. Don't really have to think that much about, this is good in memory, we just have to add a lot of content and levels, and then we stream that automatically. And this is something we do both in single player and in multiplayer, and on all platforms. So the way we did this, the core streaming is it's based on not the exact custom that you're having, the exact viewing direction, because that simply doesn't really work that well on PC when you're running with a keyboard mouse, you're rotating completely with the mouse, you can't really stream stuff fast enough for that to work. So we just based on the camera position, where you are on the level, and the distance between individual objects and textures, and prioritize that and load it in the background. There's a lot of games that have been doing this for quite some time, and we've done it reasonably successfully in the games also, but one problem that's been that we've had for a long time in the games industry in general, I think, is that most of these games that have used in streaming has been doing it in DX9, and you can't really do it in DirectX 9 very correctly because there will be CPU spikes with streaming new content because you guys are not really designed for that approach. So we've been working pretty closely with both Microsoft and all the ISVs such as NVIDIA to come up with a solution in DX11 where it's actually built into DX11 where you can have a separate thread that creates all the textures, creates all the meshes, and drivers are specifically optimized for this case that make sure these giant textures that we're loading are uploaded in parallel so you don't see any CPU stalls based on that. That's really important in order to use that quite a lot. So a couple of examples on what we stream. On a multiplayer level, we typically have around 200 and 250 megabytes of meshes. That might not sound that much, but if you consider that most people have a graphics card of only 8 gigabytes, then again a quarter of the memory just for meshes, which is just a pretty small portion of the rest of the things that you have. That actually becomes quite interesting to see a proportion of memory. regard to textures, we have a lot more. We have up to 1.5 gigabytes of textures on any single multiplayer level. And while there are parts that have 1.5 gigs of memory, that's not really the norm. People with a lower end card, or even people with a higher end card and running a kernel solution, they can't run fit all that. So that's a major reason why we stream stuff. So these settings are primarily set through the texture quality and the mesh quality settings in the options, where we set the different type of pool size, how much textures and meshes you have loaded in memory at a single point. So for high use 300 megs and for ultra use 500 megs. So ultra is most of the time for 1.5 gigabytes per bit. This is working out really quite nicely for us. I haven't really heard anyone having problems with it either, so that's a good thing. Another aspect about talking to objects is these highly quite complex levels. This is one of the levels you can say here, done on feet. And if you look at it, these are a lot of objects being rendered here at a high distance you sort of find here. But if you look at it, a lot of these objects are really the same type of object, because these are like oil systems or something that are just we're just rendering them multiple times. The artist just plays the same object here. There's a lot of smaller objects that are the same, they just repeat it. And typically, rendering these type of things can be really quite heavy because there's so many objects. And this is another really good DX11 optimization we've done specifically for Frostbite 2. There's like quite a lot of effort of trying to do this, is that we use the method of instancing. So we take all these, I'm not sure, 10 objects and render them with a single draw code. So we send a single command to the GPU to render all of these at the same time, which massively reduces the CPU burden to render this. And we can do this type of instancing on all of the different types of meshes that we have on skin trees or on these type of meshes, or even on destructible buildings that actually look really quite different. And this massively reduces the number of draw codes we have. So this level, in this exact view, has 4,000 draw codes. We're running an ultra configure. There's an ultra being further reduced the LD distances and the calling distances. So we'll see even more for further distance. So this dropped into less than a quarter of the number of draw codes there, so which massively reduces the CPU cost of the rendering. And makes it faster both on the low-end parts, because there you actually have a dual core or something like that. Rendering takes call on the CPU, but also if you have a really good machine, then you run on the higher configs and also can benefit from reducing the draw there. So that was a little bit about objects. Another major area that comes to the bringing this on, and I hope you really can feel it about this way, is the lighting and the way we do lighting. So this is a pretty interesting screenshot in an indoor environment. This is something we've never had in any Galaxy game before, and we're pretty proud of all of this stuff we've done here. So I'm just going to throw a little bit and categorize what we haven't seen. So here's just a point light from the sky. The fire is just lighting up the environment, which looks pretty cool. Some effects in there, burning water behind it. Just a standard spotlight of a car being lit by a in the parking garage, and here you see the spectral highlights from the cars and from the bumpers in the scene. And here we also have some classical sensors just doing their thing. And also some emitted particles that are sort of being lit up, lighting up the environment and tiny bit of effects to do. So this gives a quite interesting overall picture, with a lot of detail and a lot of dynamic. And all these light sources are dynamic in the scene, so stuff can move around, stuff can explode, and we're shooting and also flashes. So we spent a lot of effort on improving lighting, and I'll go into more different types of steps that we've had. We also have a shot of the lighting, but this is a much different screenshot. This is a screenshot in an outdoor environment, on the same level you saw earlier with all the drawballs on. But here we only have a single big visible light source here, which is the sun. And this is actually quite difficult to light these things properly, because the sun is so bright and there's areas that are so very dark in the scene. So what we need here is to have a really proper HDR rendering of the scene that captures all the different intensities of the light sources that we have, even though it's just a single sunlight in the sky. So we render everything in FP16, which is an HDR format on the GPUs, and then we can take a look at that picture and estimate what the exposure should be for it to get a good view of, make sure that the darks are not too dark and the brights are not too bright, and then adapt to different environments. And the key part of the HDR rendering is also blue, because blue back in the day was just a filter that someone had on top of the screen in order to make it I don't know, Arabic in the graph actually. But nowadays, and the way we use Bloom here is that Bloom is a natural part of an HDR rendering pipeline, because Bloom is what happens when you have something that's brighter than one. Then you need to show that somehow. And the way that the human eye works and the way a camera works is that if something is brighter than the max brightness you can have, then it bleeds over to the rest of the scene. So Bloom is really an essential part of this. You see a little bit here on this screenshot, but I have some other examples here also. Here's a screenshot without with no Bloom. It looks pretty okay, but you see this kind of harsh edge here that makes the picture look kind of weird and unnatural. And then if we add some Bloom on that, without really destroying the game here or anything like that, it just improves the picture overall. It makes it a smoother better picture that fits in better in the environment. Oh, someone's... okay, so let's go into some more tech details now actually, lighting and things like that. This is a little bit more complex, but the way our entire rendering pattern works is that we use a scheme called deferred shading, which is quite different from the more traditional rendering methods that most games use. There are a few other games that use deferred shading also, like Killzone on consoles, for example, and a few that use a little bit hybrid schemes, but most games still use forward rendering, and that's what we've been using before within Frostbite and our previous games as well. But the difference with deferred shading is that instead of rendering all the objects just directly and then have the final picture directly that it then just use post-processing on, instead with deferred shading, what we do is that we render all the objects, but we render them not with the final lighting, we render them to what's called a G-buffer, which I'll show just in a second here. And then we take that buffer and light it. So you really separate the object rendering from the lighting, which is a major benefit in our case for a lot of different types of lighting environments. So it enables us to have hundreds of really large or really large dynamic light sources in our objects. We can also have destructible light sources and ambient light sources. And the cost of the lighting in the scene is more dependent on the number of pixels the laser requires instead of any object rendering. So we're going to have a highly adjustable lighting scheme. This is my goal is that any question about memory, a lot of GPU memory and a lot of memory memory. So running the with first and say it can take us to 160 megs of this is just this thing offered to be 160 megs of memory, which is kind of prohibitive, especially in memory RAM, trying to render that at 60 FPS can be quite heavy. But we'll talk a little bit more about performance later. So here's how that G-buffer looks like when we're using deferred shading. So when we're rendering the objects, this is really what we're rendering out. We're not rendering out the final picture. We're rendering out a bunch of multiple type of textures that contain different components. They contain the diffuse color of the surface, which is like the standard color. Contains a specular scaling factor for that, as well as a smoothness value, which is sort of how strong the specularity is on the surface. We also render out normals that we use for the lighting later on. And this is really quite a different scheme of render. I don't know that many PC games that do it as fully as we do, but we find it to be a really interesting method and that helps us quite tremendously to achieve very different types of lighting environments. And going to even more lower detail tech on how we use this, that when just doing some experimentations with the deferred shading, we found that with the Index 11 GPUs, found pretty early that we could use compute shaders there. Which is a way of not using the graphics rendering pattern on the GPU, but just using it as a general super parallel processor very much. I found a method that we call using tile-based lighting, where we can use a compute shader, which is pretty much just a program you run that runs on the GPU and goes through every pixel, and it can do a lot better light flow to remove the many light sources affecting each pixel, and as such, more efficiently light that. We save a lot of memory bandwidth here, because that is one of the things I mentioned was with the problem with the deferred shading, and you have this pretty fast G-buffer of 160 megs with full quality, and you have to read in that and read in that and process that every single pixel when you light or stuff otherwise. But with this compute shader-based approach, we improve performance quite significantly, especially when using it, say, when you have these really large buffers. So this is something that's only available in Frostbite 2 when using DX11. So it's a pretty cool benefit that we're working on. If you use DX10, it still runs, and we're using more traditional methods. It's just a bit slower, especially when using it. But it still runs and looks the same.